G'day so-and-sos and welcome to my sewing room. My name's Kathy and I had a request from a viewer to do a video on how I cut a little piece of fabric out of a big piece of fabric with minimal wastage. So I've chosen a piece of fabric that has a lot of pattern in it to show how I work with the pattern as well, to make sure that you don't end up all wonky. And this fabric I'll be using for this week's bag, so stay tuned for that as well. Okay, let's get cracking. Okay, here's my fabric. Let's have a look at this. Now I'll be using this to make this week's bag and I just love it. I love the colors, love the pattern, but we have got a big piece of fabric here. So we want minimal wastage. So I'm going to be down in this corner, I think. So I'm going to get this all foomphed out and I'm going to use a weight because there's so much fabric there that when it's hanging off the edge of my table, it's going to pull, it's going to have some weight. So I want a pattern weight and I literally use a weight off a gym set. Gorgeous. Now, something to think about when you are cutting up your fabric, especially if you're using vinyl and especially in bag making, is that we often cut gussets and straps and longer pieces out of our fabric. So if I'm using a piece of vinyl, I want to make sure that I'm not cutting across the length constantly and that I'm leaving enough length to cut out my straps and enough width to cut them out. So I'll generally work at one end and leave the other end of the vinyl alone and just sort of cut and work across and take pieces out that way and leave the other end nice and long, rather than going up that way and cutting off my width. You don't want to do that. You always want to leave enough there because you could end up still with a heap of fabric, but going that way and narrow and long, and it stretches the wrong way, so you can't cut your gusset or strap out that way, if that makes sense. So have a think about that when you're cutting up your fabric as well, what else you need to cut out of it. So this piece here has a pattern. So if your pattern is, if you have fabric that has a pattern and your pattern is directional and everything else, you need to make sure that when I cut it, so if we look at my tulips, that when I cut it, I'm not like that. And I don't have a full tulip here and half a tulip there, because I still could end up with a piece that's 19 by 12 going that way across my fabric, but it'll be wonky and my pattern will be all wonky. So let's start off by getting ourselves a straight edge down along this bottom. And I don't want to cut too much fabric. So I want it 19 by 12 and I want 19 across that way going with my pattern. So I'm going to line up my ruler along the bottom of these blue splotchy things. And I'm just going to go half an inch longer than what I need. So I've got a little bit to work with to get nice straight edges. So I'm going to go 20 inches and I'm going to cut this bottom piece off so that I know my bottom edge is nice and straight with my pattern, and I also have a nice clean straight edge to work from. So there we go, there's my straight edge. Now I want to go 12 up. So I'm going to line up my ruler and I'm not going to do it right up against with the bottom edge of my ruler against there. It would be too much of a chance of going wonky. So I'm going to line up my 12-inch mark along that straight edge that we just made, because I know that that's straight and I know from there I can go up 12. So steeple my fingers, cut up, and then I'm going to start my long cut as well that way. Then I'm being very careful not to then shift and move my fabric. It would be easy for me to go, well, now I want to move my fabric towards me. But if I do that, I run the risk of everything getting misaligned, the fabric stretching a little bit, whatever. So take that bit up so I can line up this side now with that straight edge, and I know that that edge is straight. And I've also started my cut along this long side. So line up that side with that cut, and then the top with that cut, and cut all the way across. And I'm also using a new blade in that as well. And then I can take that bit off. I can move all that long bit out of the way, and I'm going to bump the camera, sorry. There we go. Cool. Now I just need to get this side. Now also my table is adjustable. So I'll probably bump the camera again if I put that up. But I can move my table up and down, which makes life a lot easier, especially when cutting these big pieces. She says as it goes for an elevator ride. And I usually have it just about my hip height, makes it nice and easy on my back because I'm old. Okay, so I'm going to line up my ruler at the 19-inch mark. So that side is going down my 19-inch line, and this side is nice and straight. And take that bit off, and then I'll move that down 19 inches across there. And 19 down. It's just my way of checking to make sure that it is even all the way down. I could have flipped my ruler around and used that line, but I just want to make sure that is nice and straight. And I can tidy up that edge ever so slightly. Cool bananas. Okay, so let's check myself. Lined up on that side. 19 across. And 12 across. And I look nice and even. My pattern looks nice and even and minimal wastage. So that's how I do it. I'm sure there's a lot of people that watch that are quilters, and quilters are going to be the experts at this. So quilters, if you have any comments or tips or anything else, whack them in the comments for us. Now let's have a look at how I might use my mat and my ruler together to cut out a piece. So this bit isn't as big, so it's a bit easier to see. Now I want a piece out of this one that is 19 by 14 and a half. So I'm going to use my mat. So I'm going to line it up in that corner with this straight edge along that line and this straight edge along the bottom. And I can see that my piece is 23 inches. So I've got enough length, which is great. And it's 17 or 16 and a half high. So I've got enough height. So I know that it's square here and here. So I can find the 19-inch line, which you can see here and here. And I'm going to, well, what I could do is cut that. I could put the 14 and a half there, but I want to show you how I use the grid as a whole. So I'm going to have my long ruler on the 19 line up here and here. So I know if I do it this way, I haven't gone wonky anywhere. And I'm double checking my measurement because I don't have much of this fabric and I really want to use it. Okay, so I know that my piece is now 19 wide. So I want it 14 and a half this way. So I'll turn it around and do the same thing. I'm going to line up this edge and this edge. And I want 14 and a half. So I'll take my long ruler and line that up with the 14 and a half line top and bottom. So what I'm doing is taking the 1/2 inch line on my ruler and lining it up with the 14. And then I can see also that it's lining up with the dots on that 1/2 inch line. and then same thing down on this bottom edge. My 1/2 inch line on my ruler is lined up on that 14, and I'm straight here and I'm straight across the bottom. And I am checking everything twice because I only have a little bit of this fabric left. So I'm being super duper careful. And I ironed it to start off with as well, so it was nice and flat to work with. So then I have my 19 that way and my 14.5 that way, and I'm looking good. So these mats really are worthwhile getting because it just gives you that extra bit to work with so that you don't end up cutting out your fabric and then find that one side is all wonky and 1/2 inch short on one end, and then you've ruined your piece of fabric for that project. Okay, there you go. So there you go. That's how I go about doing it. Now, like I said, the quilters out there might have a better way of going about it. So by all means, share away. Let us know what you think. And otherwise, stay tuned for the bag that I'm going to make out for this. So make sure you like and subscribe and head over to my channel to see what I come up with out of this one. Okay, guys, have a great day. And remember, it's only fabric. Shops are full of it. Okay, bye. Bugger.